everyone, and welcome to the channel. We're going to get right into it. We're using a 9x12 whiteboard, and we are using two paints. Lime green and grass green are going to be our two main colors for this. I'm going to take my water bottle and go ahead and spritz down my 9x12 whiteboard. You, of course, can use craft plastic or any shiny surface for this kind of painting. And I am taking my 2-inch soft bristle brush, and I'm applying my grass green, which is a fairly transparent color. It's allowing the light, or the white, to shine through the whiteboard. It's going to give us an effect that is nice and bright and sunny. I'm also adding my lime green right on top, also fairly transparent, and applying my paint for my background. Now this kind of painting, you need to keep the paint fluid. It needs to stay wet, but not too wet. It's always a challenge to make sure the paint is just right for this. I'm going to be adding some texture. This is just a plastic bag. You may recognize it. It's a packing bag from an Amazon box. Love these things. They make this really cool texture, as you can see here. Now that's a little too much texture for me, so I'm going to soften that up by just running my bag right over it. It's going to give that nice filtered light effect, kind of like a blurry photo background of a forest or something green. So it works out great. I'm adding a little bit more texture in. I'll keep fiddling with this so that my background is separated from my foreground in this picture. I don't often do realistic style paintings, but this one's going to be a little more realistic instead of abstract. Now what I'm doing is just taking my brush, this is just a filbert brush, and I am making strokes in my paint. I am just making grass strokes or plant life strokes. Now these strokes are going to act as my highlight. I'm actually going to be adding some lowlights by adding paint in. I'm normally removing paint with this kind of painting, but I'm going to be adding some deeper color. And in order to do that, I'm adding a little bit of black fluid paint. It's mixed with Floetrol, just black paint and Floetrol. And I'm adding it to my grass green, and you're going to see a huge color change when I put that on. Just making sure my background is staying kind of light back there as I do that. Okay, now I'm going to be adding that darker color right over the top. It's just grass green and black. You can see just lots of little loose strokes here. It's not important which direction they go in, not really. Just flick your wrist and you'll get some nice little strokes. I'll go in and make some longer ones and make some shorter ones in the foreground until I get the look that I want. Okay, I have a joke for you. Why is grass so dangerous? Because it's full of blades. Yeah, bad joke. Yeah, I can't seem to quit putting down all of these little blades of grass in these stems for the flowers I'm going to make. I just have to get them all in the right place and make sure there's enough. So let me speed this up. So now is the time we're putting our flowers in, and what we need to do is remove paint. This is kind of like watercolor. If you could actually remove the watercolor, well, you can. When you're on a slick surface, you can remove the paint, and I am just showing where I'm going to place the flowers by gently removing the paint. In some places it's wetter, as you can see the green kind of smears around a little bit. But since I'm just trying to get placement, it's not a big deal. I'm going to show you several ways you can remove paint. First would be with a wet brush. If your paint is wet, you can use a dry brush to do it. If it is dry, you cannot. So now that I've added a little bit of water back, I can remove the paint and I can make my daisy petals. As you can see, they still have a lot of green on them, so you're constantly having to wipe your brush off to get the white back. You do have to be very careful not to remove too much paint. Now, since I've got a lot of green on this, I'm going to use pointed tip cotton swabs. These are great to remove the paint and get down to the white, especially if your paint has dried. So now I can just take my swab and pull off the green paint that is there. And you can kind of take it off in layers if you want to. And I'm just finishing up my petals here. And have to change my cotton swabs. That's the bad thing about that. You can also use one of these tools. This is a silicone tool. It's a silicone brush for nails. You can use them for anything, but see how white? You can get right straight down to the whiteboard with one of these silicone brushes. The other way is to do it the old-fashioned way and just pull the paint off with a tissue or a towel. You don't have a lot of control, so if you want something that's really small removed, it's not going to happen with this. It's kind of like, overkill when you're trying to get off just a little bit of paint, but you really can get straight down to the board with it. So you have several methods of removing the paint from the whiteboard. To fine-tune the flower, I'm going to use a small brush. So the brush allows you to have a lot more control and remove the paint very strategically. So I'm able to make my petals. Slowly but surely, I can go around and pull off enough paint that I will have something that looks like a flower. The only thing I'm going to have to do is to add a middle into my flower by adding a little bit of paint, and I do that in stages. I keep my paint over to the side, so I'm just going to grab some yellow paint over here to put in the center. Now I am going to add more to this, but I do have to add some paint back for the centers. And I will show you how I do that. You'll see that process as I go along. Just adding some color in, just dotting in, kind of like I'm watercolor painting, literally. It's just water and paint, and it looks like I'm making a mess, but I'm not. I'm just kind of getting my ideas of where my centers are going to be, and then I will work from there. Now I have them looking like little sunny side up eggs, but I promise you they won't stay looking like this for long. I will fix it. Now let's move on to this little flower right here, and let's start getting those petals in. It's just a practice of removing and wiping the brush each time to get the paint off. And then we can get the petals. If there's too much green, we just keep on working until there is no green. The paint has to be carefully removed from each flower petal. So this is not an instant gratification kind of work like it is when you're doing the Lazy Susan going around, and you can do those in a couple of minutes. This one, it takes time because you have to be so careful not to remove too much paint, or you'll have to add more paint back in, which sometimes leaves it looking like a mess. For the sake of time, I'm going to speed some things up so you can see the process, and I'll show you how I do the middles as we go along, and you can see how each one is created. I've decided I need one more flower, so I'm going to add one more in to complete my picture. How about right about here? And let's get that one done really quickly. Just a few finishing touches and highlights on the middles of the daisies and I'll be done. And okay, here it is. This was not a fast one. This one took some time, but it really turned out well, and I love the light in this one. It looks like a beautiful summer's day. Tell me what you think in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, bye now.